Hey, what's going on, YouTube? Today's episode is another review for Star Trek Lower Decks. So grab yourself a blended margarita and join me as I review Lower Decks Episode 3 Temporal Edicts. Hit it! Welcome back to the channel, everyone. This is Happiness of Star Trek. I'm your host, Dre. And if you're new to the channel, this is where I talk about everything Star Trek related. And if you haven't watched Lower Decks yet, episode 3, don't watch this episode because it's a review and I don't want to spoil it for you. Please don't make me be someone who's a spoiler. So go watch that episode and then you can watch this video to get my thoughts and my breakdown about what happened in episode 3 for Lower Decks. But if you've already seen it or you don't care about watching it and you enjoy watching review videos for it, then let's just go ahead and get right into it. So the episode starts out, the intro is some kind of talent show or open mic or something like that. And we see Brad, he is playing his violin. And Beckett comes up along with Tindy and she has her guitar and she says, I don't know what this is. I don't care. And her and Tindy played this really heavy metal type of song. It reverberates throughout the ship. On the bridge, Captain Freeman is talking with the Klingon captain. She says, hey, it's from your end. Chief Security goes to the Cerritos bar. At this point, Beckett's already done. She's left the stage. Brad takes the blame, and the Chief of Security just breaks his violin in half and roll opening credits. So I really think that one of the best things about Lower Decks so far is Brad is continually using Beckett as kind of a litmus test. And it doesn't work out for him when he's trying to measure up to her. Diminishing returns, you would think he would learn his lesson, but no, Brad is dense. So with this episode, we see the four ensigns, Tindy, Beckett, Brad, and Rutherford. They're doing some testing and maintenance in the brig. And once they're done, Brad's like, hey, we need to get a new assignment. But it's understood that the lower decks, that's not how they operate. They have this thing called buffer time where they basically are assigned a task, and when asked by a superior officer how long it's going to take, they pad the estimated time so that way when they finish early it makes them look good and they can take a break. Meanwhile, the captain gets a message from an admiral saying the Cerritos is no longer going to be in charge of a peace accord with the Cardassians. It's been moved to Vulcan. She gets in a tizzy about it, feels like the Cerritos is not a good ship, that doesn't run tight enough. She goes on a tear throughout the ship with anyone standing around just meets her wrath. She comes across Brad and he lets slip about buffer time. Once she finds this out, a new directive is sent out to the crew where everyone is timed and they have to complete their task within that amount of time. A week goes by, everyone is running ragged. You see the bags under their eyes. People are sleeping at their stations, barely functioning, except Brad. He's the only one who is going through this with a breeze, and he absolutely loves that there is no buffer time. There's a mission for second contact, and there's a new alien species that has joined the Federation. Beckett is assigned to be a member of the landing party to formally greet these aliens who have built their society around crystals. And when they get to the planet, these crystals are all over the place. They get down to the planet, and instead of presenting the ceremonial crystal, the ensign accidentally picked up a container that had this wooden log in it, and the aliens consider it an act of war, attacks the away party, takes them prisoner, and send ships up to the Cerritos for an invasion. Things on the Cerritos are going just as bad because everyone's exhausted, including the senior officers and the bridge crew, because the whole ship is running on this, hey, we're timing all of your tasks. So everyone's running to the ground. We see Beckett and Jack, the first Jack Ransom, the first officer. They're in a cage. They're in a prison together, and they're informed by the leader that one of them is gonna have to fight their champion to the death. And they start going back and forth about who gets to do it. And we see Beckett saying permission to speak freely, to which Ransom replies, nothing stops you from speaking freely. Go ahead. And she basically tells him, I'm gonna do this. I'm good at kicking butt, solving mysteries, all these different things, which is completely true. At the end of it, though, he ends up stabbing her in the foot so that he can fight the champion in this death match. So we see him rip off his shirt. He has muscles, and Beckett's looking like, oh, that's kind of neat. Hmm. And she's really intrigued that he's handling himself so well. He wins because this champion for these aliens, he's like, you know what? I give. And meanwhile, the invasion party on the Cerritos, they are spraying graffiti everywhere and all these different things. Brad is trying to figure out what this red alert is for until he sees these aliens and phases them, and he's like, oh, these guys are lightweights. And he proceeds to go through the ship, making his way up to the bridge. And he inspires the captain, hey, you're a good captain. You don't need to have all this timing with the crew. Go ahead and just let them do the work how they need to get it done. This inspires everyone, and the next thing you know, they're fighting back, and eventually the aliens leave the ship. The away team is set free, and they make their way back to the ship. Once they're all back together on the Cerritos, Beckett is in sick bay talking to the chief medical officer, and she has all her scars, and the doctor asks her, hey, you want me to get rid of those scars? And she's like, no way, these are my trophies, to which the doctor replies, "Congratulations, you look like a scratching post." We see Ransom walk in, and he's talking with Beckett, and they come to an understanding that, she handled herself pretty well, but he did at the same time handle himself. And despite her performance on the planet, he has them take her to the brig because she never rolled down the sleeves to her uniform like he told her to. And she proceeds to get pretty irate, and he tells her, "Well, you're gonna be in the brig an extra day," but we all know it doesn't matter because that's her favorite place. She likes it in the brig. So, joke is on him. At the end of the episode, Captain Freeman is speaking with Brad about the whole buffer time thing, and it basically she basically has enacted for the entire ship something called the Boimler effect, where, hey, cut whatever corners it is you need in order to get the job done. He hates it, but once he gets back to the lower decks crew, they tell him, "Hey, no one's gonna remember this." Sometime in the far future, we see this class of children, and the instructor is telling them, so we have the Boimler effect for the laziest, most corner cutting officer in Starfleet history. And they cut to, hey, now we're going to talk about the probably the most important officer in Starfleet history, and that's Chief Miles O'Brien. And the statue switches from Boimler to Miles, and I thought that was pretty cool. So, like with the rest of the episodes, this episode, it didn't really make me laugh as much, but I still enjoyed it. I really do like the humor. There's a lot of sarcasm. They do, a lot of irony, and the Easter eggs. I mean, it's every episode Easter egg after Easter egg, and if you're a longtime Trek fan like I am, you really do appreciate that they've included so much from the Star Trek lore and universe in this show. And it comes in different forms. Not only are they saying names and referencing different events in Star Trek, but there are things they do in the background. There's different alien type species that we see, and they might have some kind of decoration or something like that on the walls, and just all kinds of ways that they make reference to the overall lore of Star Trek. And I love it. It's great. I can't get enough of it, which, to be honest, when I first heard about a Star Trek series being based on the Next Generation episode Lower Decks, and that it was going to be a comedy, I wasn't very thrilled. I was not sure how that was going to work. I just did not see it being something uh, that could work, honestly. But I decided to be open minded and to give it a chance whenever it was released. And I did, and I gotta say, I love Star Trek Lower Decks. It has quickly become one of my favorite Star Trek series, and I absolutely adore the Star Trek franchise. If you know me, that's pretty much all I want to talk about. So, hence this channel. So, Lower Decks, fantastic. Last week, I didn't give the rating for episode 2, so my rating for last week's episode, Envoys, is again 5 out of 5 quantum torpedoes. It's all across the board. I just loved everything about that episode. This episode, I'm going with four quantum torpedoes. Uh, Still a good episode. Didn't make me laugh nowhere near as much as the first two episodes did, but still gold. Still very consistent with what it is they're doing with the show, and I absolutely love it. And honestly, I didn't know I needed a Star Trek comedy series until they did this. And the fact that it's animated really just sets up for them to do things just a little bit differently than they would with a live action series. So, hats off to the creators. It's been a fun ride so far, and it's what Star Trek, I think, in general needed, because it's bringing in a lot of people who have wanted to check out Star Trek throughout the years, but the series just was a little too sci-fi. It was too a little too stuffy with the way it presented its material. But you have this Lower Decks. It's a comedy. It's adult animated. It's drawn in quite a few people. I already have turned two people so far into Trekkies because they watched the first 1 to 2 episodes of Lower Decks and absolutely love it. So, with that being said, you guys, I can't leave a link in the description for my shirt because this was a limited edition t-shirt for Lower Decks and it's no longer available for purchase. But what I will do is leave a link in the description for my hat, my Twitter, and the Twitter handle for the artist who did the show's artwork. So, like the video, share, subscribe, make comments. I love interacting with all of you. So, help me grow my channel because I'm enjoying this. Talking about Star Trek is my favorite thing. And with that, be safe and keep on trekking.